All right, guys. So just to kind of finish up our kind of like our path of different events that I've identified that really divide the nation and really kind of think about these kind of ultimately leading to the South, the secession of the South from the country, and then the Civil War. So at this point, we left off talking about the Dred Scott decision. And so in 1859, we have another huge event that really captures the imagination of the people in the execution of John Brown. So again, a lot of these I don't necessarily have a bunch of notes for you to copy down, but let me just kind of explain the story for you. So in 1859, John Brown and a group of his family and others decide to essentially start a slave insurrection in Virginia. And so they go to Harper's Ferry, Virginia, where there's an armory where they're trying to get the guns and gunpowder and ammunition. The idea is to forcefully raid that armory, start to distribute all those new arms, the guns and everything, to slaves to start an insurrection. Again, this is something you could look up if you're interested in, but long story short, it doesn't work. It's not very well planned. A lot of the slaves don't even realize what's going on. It didn't work, and it's put down relatively quickly and easily. And well, John Brown is tried and found guilty of treason because that's what he did. I mean, if you try to forcefully go to a federal armory where there's guns with the express purpose of insurrection, well, that's a crime against your country, and it's treason. And he was sentenced to death. And as you can see here, he was executed. And he also then becomes, well, as you can see here, a martyr. Because think about now, you can just start to see, how does this divide this country, the execution of this person? How, if you're alive in 1859 and you read about the execution of John Brown, how are you going to interpret what happened? If you live in the North or if you live in the South, how do you interpret it? That very different interpretation is going to do nothing but increase the tensions within our country. People would read about what it was like, during the execution, very dignified. His last words reportedly were, "This is a beautiful country," going out as a patriot. And how would the world see this, especially the North? They see him as somebody who has died for his cause. The cause of getting rid of slavery, getting rid of a system where people are buying people. And for a lot of people in the North, what this is, well, it's one thing to say, okay, if he got caught by the South and the southern states killed him, but no, notice here, an American flag. The United States of America has just killed somebody for wanting to get rid of the institution of slavery. He is a hero. Now, obviously, in the South, they're going to see him as an insurrectionist, a rebel. And you'll see both of those are right. Both of those interpretations are factually correct. But you can see how this is going to happen. We now see our country completely divided over this issue. Tensions rising even more. And then just imagine, we got all this stuff I've been talking about the last decade of tensions rising. And then we get an election. We go crazy enough about our elections today. Imagine the stakes of this election, the election of 1860. So, again, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, unfortunately, about Abraham Lincoln, his life, his political career. I just want to look at the election itself. So this is a bizarre election because you can see there's multiple parties who actually win electoral college votes. This does not happen very often. So remember, the election takes place where people within the state vote, and whoever wins the state gets the electoral votes of the state. And so what you can see here is that in this new Republican Party that had only been around for a few years, Lincoln wins most of the northern states. Then running the southern, the Democratic Party is still kind of split. You have Breckinridge, who wins most of the South. And there's Stephen Douglas wins a northern Democratic Party. So you can still see there's a split. So somebody like Douglas still calls himself a Democrat. Not going to be a Republican. I'm not going to get into that right now. And then there was a kind of a moderate party trying to just figure out, hey, maybe we can just kind of keep things as is. Let's figure this out. Bell wins some too. Again, I encourage you guys to look up more about the election because I really don't want to get into it in too much detail right now, other than to say this. The real simple one. Who wins? Well, Abe Lincoln wins as the head of a party, a Republican Party that was dedicated. The whole point of it is about stopping the spread of slavery. His name wasn't even on the ballot in most of the southern states. So imagine that. You wake up, it wouldn't be the next morning, but you realize you've lost the election, and the person whose name wasn't even on the ballot wins the election of a party whose only purpose is to stop the spread of slavery. What are you going to do if you're a southern state? You leave. They're done. The official results of this election would have been in December. And then by February of 1861, we have a new country. The Confederate States of America. The southern states decide they no longer want to be a part of the United States of America. They leave the Union, secede from the Union, and then create, they call their own country, the Confederate States of America. Now, poor Abe Lincoln, he hasn't even taken office yet, and this happened. He doesn't take office until March. Back then, the president would win the election in the fall, but inauguration wasn't until March. They've changed it since. Today, it's in January. But just imagine that. Your first day in office, and that's the problem you have to figure out. The first day in office, and you realize the country is now literally split in two. Actually, not even split in two. You have half of it just left, doesn't even want to be called part of yours. What do? You let them go? Or do we go to war to keep this all together? We know the answer to that, but that's the dilemma that faced Abraham Lincoln the first day in office. So I'm going to end the events there kind of on that thought. And we will talk a little bit about Abraham Lincoln and how he had to deal with this tragic, in many ways, dilemma. But then what we'll also do is when we come back, we will talk more about kind of the more general causes of the war, not just so much these specific events. But okay, so this is going to be kind of the end of the first part. So hopefully we understand these events, thinking about how all these tensions kind of all come up and bring us to this point. And that's what I want to make sure you guys have in your notes and make sure you're really kind of understanding. So anyway, thank you guys very much, and we will talk to you later.